is 5:30 on November 29th, 2023. I call this meeting of the Rent Control Board of Highland Park to order. I'll start with the OPMA Compliance Act. This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and Highland Park Planet on October 5th, 2023, and was posted to the borough website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board at Borough Hall, 221 South Fifth Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. All right, let's move on to the first order of business. We have approval of minutes for September 27th and October 25th.
Motion to approve?
We have a second?
Second.
Sure, yes.
Well, I wasn't here in October.
You want to abstain? Do you want to abstain?
Yes, I want to ask you. I can do second. I can do this.
I second.
But not the October.
Are we good? See no
Yes.
objections?
No.
All right, minutes are approved. Next on the order of business, we have board meeting schedule for 2024. I have a copy of that memo.
And basically, we're looking at a fourth Thursday of a month as a general rule, 5:30, with the exception being the September meeting, because we need to take action on the increase for the next year in enough time to meet the standard of the board.
So that meeting will be
Be a little-
earlier in the
a little
month.
bit, yeah.
Okay. And that one is TBD for now.
No, they're all
September
on-
26th is actually, that's a week
That's the one I
earlier.
meant,
Okay.
sorry.
So that's not the last.
And so, but be advised if there's, I just hope this isn't a chronic problem for anybody. There may be times where not everybody can come, that's
It
all.
might be for me, but since you said we might not always have to have a meeting,
Right.
because I have a commitment on Thursdays, but I'll try to work with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if it starts to become problematic for some reason, we can reevaluate the schedule. But what this makes it easier for the clerk to just notice it at the start of the year. So, and then if we have to make adjustments as we go, we will.
All right,
Cancellations too.
Chair will entertain, go ahead, Jared.
Could we put these down as what you said, and then is there a way to make it where if we have a current appeal or we have something to discuss, we can, or say we have to have a meeting, but I think every month it might be, do we have something every month?
No. I think what we're asking for you
want
is to soft hold those dates to the best of your ability. So try not to schedule, but you will have several weeks notice if it's more likely that we are having a meeting as opposed to not, but our request would be that you put a hold, and I'll do a calendar, for the dates, for those of you like electronic, and you'll see it coming and you just try to avoid scheduling things on those days. But if something pressing comes up, odds are you'll know if we're in the middle of something, and whether or not, you'll know in advance.
And I guess procedurally, let's say when we have the next the additional board member, if we need to vote and one of us, or do we need, what's quorum?
Three.
So we will be able to do things with.
Yes.
Well, not any three, as long there
Not
has to be
any.
one in each position, right? So,
Yeah. So like in your case, it's either you or Diane have to be here because you're in the same landlord position.
Right.
But yes, that's a good point. So that's why the alternates are really important because there may be conflicts. So we'll need to be able to address those. So my hope is we can notice this, you'll hold those dates, avoid them to your best ability, but you'll know within 3 weeks if we're gonna need it.
Sounds good.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to approve.
Committal.
Motion second, all right, see no objections. Motion carries, schedule for 2024 is approved. And we're now on to the hearing, but we need to hold off until our attorney gets here.
Yes, apologies for those, a lot of you are here for that, but he got stuck in traffic, and as this is our first hearing as a new board, I think it's probably advisable to have him here
And-
from the start.
We don't have anything after this, and I think we probably want to wait for public comment until after we've heard all the.
That's my suggestion is
testimony on-
let's walk, I have a feeling that's what Ed will advise, we'll walk through the applicant will have opportunity to present and then there'll be opportunity for public
Shall
comment.
we go to recess until he
I think
arrives?
that makes
Alright.
sense.
I don't think we ever officially appointed our chair
We have not.
and we don't.
She's
have-
acting chair. I think.
Until,
But are we could do that?
I thought we
We
were
had-
waiting until we had all
A
six.
full comp?
That was what the minutes say, anyway.
Okay.
So.
It's on the agenda, so I can take action. Not to be council.
Oh.
Jason, I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, I don't know that we can take action on it anyway, since it wasn't noticed in the public meeting.
Oh, we didn't put it on the agenda.
So,
So I think, Ed didn't seem to have a concern about, waiting until we have the full complement. As long as HP is comfortable and you guys are
I
comfortable.
don't mind unless somebody else wants to do it tonight.
wants.
Diane, you want?
Pass the baton.
It's all you.
So let me see if I've gotten a text. He thought he might be 10 or
We-
15 late, so that tells me probably
we-
quarter
we
of, we
know
could do a
There's
10 or
somebody on the
15
agenda
minute.
for the next board meeting to be approved for the position.
I don't think so. We double check with Terry, but I.
Keep going back to the land.
Agenda's ready.
I've got two different.
Oh, we were just talking to
conversations.
each other
Uh-huh.
and we mentioned, I just said that you may know, but like, do we have another person that, but I think we had four.
I was just talking with the mayor about it today. I believe we have one application, but I don't think she's interviewed the person. Usually
Okay.
the practice is she'll
Yeah.
at least do a Zoom or something with the interview. So I reminded her, because I had this on my mind, I said, we still have that vacant tenant alternate position. And so she said she would get on it.
It's the owner occupier position, isn't it?
I
The,
thought it was tenant.
on-
You're a tenant.
Lucinda.
I think Lucinda's our tenant and
Or-
you.
Yes.
oh, you're you're my.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
so
actually,
so
tenant, yeah.
we need Lucinda's alternate, basically. And I know there was an application that came in. I just don't know what happened to it. And so I have to push it back out to the mayor. And I don't know if the person's still interested or whatever.
So right now it's just Lucinda that can't miss any meetings.
So it's in your interest to find an alternate. I'm just kidding. So yes, and I just was saying on the side, Jared was asking me I think Ed'll, when he gets here, he's gonna walk us through the process a
Okay.
little to your question, so that everybody has the benefit of hearing it together. So I think your suggestion of a recess might make sense. And Ed had suggested he'd be here probably 15 minutes late, so figure 10 minutes and hope for the best.
Need a motion for a 10-minute recess? You ready?
Sure. Second. Or however you do that.
Somebody has to make the motion. The chair can't make the motion. So,
So
So Jared did, I said.
and you second it. All right. See no objections. Let's move to recess for 10 minutes.
I think, apologies, he would be here. He was planning to be here early and he got stuck. Can't. Control Route 1.
We should have these things catered if they're gonna be at
We should have
5:30. What's the budget look
I'm
like?
just, we are still broadcasting,
privacy.
so just keep that in mind.
Sorry, made jokes. Fun.
Mhm. Hey,
Just
just
joking.
be-
Just
be
joking.
proud of your jokes, that's all.
It's a funny way of me saying I'm hungry.
I remember space and I never have snacks because I try not to have them in my desk.
So I'm guessing Stephanie had a baby. Is that correct?
I saw a picture on Facebook where they were in front of their house holding a little something. Good sign.
Yeah.
Do we know the name? of the baby?
We announcing that to the whole borough right now.
She put it on Facebook, I think it's. Do we know if it's a boy or a girl even? I didn't even ask her.
It's a boy.
I didn't know. She probably knew in advance. I just
Yeah,
didn't.
I think she.
So Terry, we did not get written responses to these questions, right?
No.
That we had,
So they have to bring it here
they'll present
and
it.
present.
Okay.
My assumption Ed's gonna suggest they walk us through the application and their responses, but I don't know if that's what they'll do.
Definitely provide them the questions before they come, because there's gonna, as a landlord, there's gonna be some that they want.
They got these.
Yeah, they got this.
They got everything. And the tenants did as well. That requested.
Some of this I think we did have in the original filing, didn't we?
There were clarifications I made.
Yeah.
Some are more comments than questions. I guess if we're in recess, we probably should do that.
Is our mic on now?
No, I was curious to see if anybody was online at
Oh.
home. So that makes me,
There's, oh, it shows two. I don't like when you can't see the ones that aren't on camera. It shows two off camera.
those are both these two devices. My laptop is one
Uh-huh.
and the back is one. And so there's nobody from the public on right now.
Members of the board could attend the meeting virtually as well.
Yeah, except our policy is that the members of the body come in person because we, in case of a technical floof and we lose your quorum, that's similar to the policy we have for governing body. So while others can participate remotely, the members of the, who knows, over time could that evolve? But right now, that's what we're holding to.
I know, just be zooming in from 2 blocks
Well,
away
then, like,
anyways.
exactly, so that's kind of like, come on, can we at least?
I'm actually pretty sick of Zoom by now,
Me
so.
The hybrid has something to be desired too. It's like, that's like the worst of both. And it's the best of both.
We have to teach classes like that now. My grad classes. are
Really?
all some people zooming in and some people there, and it's not,
It's
it's
optional.
like bad for everybody.
It's optional to
Yeah.
Zoom for the students.
For grad classes, not for undergrad classes.
That makes a little more sense.
So it's like for a master's program because I wish they would just have 2 sections if they were gonna do that.
Just
One
have a
on
remote
Zoom
section
have-
and a.
Yeah, and have one that's.
How can you, who are you?
You're like
who are you
alienating people
addressing?
in discussion and
Am I
stuff.
talking to this person in the audience or am I talking to my computer?
It's not great.
Yeah,
And they have that, option to do that throughout the whole semester.
Yeah.
they can come in person.
Yeah, they mostly do.
Yeah, and they probably.
I actually fought it pretty hard and I lost that battle, so.
I have
It's
to
bad pedagogy,
I have
not
to
because
go.
I don't want my students to be able to zoom in, but like,
engage them and.
when they're sick, I would like them to just stay home and be sick and take care of themselves, not like feel like they have to come to class.
That's a fair point. How many classes do you teach? It's a lot.
It's too many.
Rutgers, you get off with less than that.
Well, I
That's the-
teach
my
4
friends who
Rutgers,
work
I
at
want at
Middlesex.
CUNY, one at CUNY, 4
Oh, okay,
Rutgers.
so it's not all right. My friend at Middlesex, she's like, I have to take so many classes compared to Rutgers.
Right. It's too many, I should probably cut back, but I love teaching, so it's hard to say no
Yes.
when they ask me if I want to design a new class. Of course I do,
Sure, I'd like to slave it with us.
in my spare time.
Mhm. Oh, man. Wait, that travel. just texted me, try to get home at 6. Like, that's not happening. You gotta look at the calendar more, I bet more closely.
You can zoom them.
I'll send him the link. I'm like, if you miss me, I'm not sure.
I asked my husband if he wanted to watch on Zoom. No.
So my mom was in town.
Are you
We had-
curious what I do? No.
My mom was in town before Thanksgiving and they watched the council meeting and
Really?
I was like, oh no, what part did you see? First he texted me during the meeting, it's not working, freaking me out. But he was trying to do it off YouTube. I go, it's on Zoom, come on. We put the recordings on YouTube.
Made a copy of the dates, but somehow do you think it's in here?
It was in the thing I emailed you and it was in, I
It was in
know,
the bundle of-
Pauline helped me collate, but it's possible, things got
Here,
shuffled.
I'll just take a picture of mine and then
Okay.
give you this one.
I mean, if you emailed it to
It's
me,
in the
that's
You
fine.
have it, it's in the packet that I emailed.
Yeah, okay.
On this one.
Hey.
I apologize.
We recessed.
Yeah, I get through.
So I think when you get settled, we did our basic stuff already.
Running HP.
Mhm. We got one order of business left.
That's right.
Mention what we're doing.
Yep.
Good evening. I'm Ed Schmier, the lawyer for the board. And I apologize. I was stuck in an accident on Route 1 coming up from my office. And so I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. This evening, the Rent Control Board has an opportunity to consider what's known as a hardship rental increase appeal by individuals who own property on Dennison Street. And they would like to increase the rent for 2024 greater than the 3.8%, which the board otherwise permits under our ordinance. So this evening, we would invite the owners of the property, the landlords who are represented to come forward, and we would swear you in, and we would ask you to present the reasons to the board why you believe you should be entitled to a hardship adjustment. And the board then will be given an opportunity to ask you questions about the material that you present. And then we would open it up to the public to let the public also ask questions, just questions. Later on, the public will be given an opportunity to testify about what they believe should be the result of the hearing. I understand and is required, and I know that the attorney for the landlord will indicate on the record that notice has been provided to, I believe there are 3 tenants in the property. So, and hopefully they're all here or they're on the Zoom meeting for us this evening. And then after the landlord presents the material that the landlords would like the board to consider, and the questions are completed, Then certainly the tenants, if they care to testify, they are more than welcome to do so and present whatever information you believe is relevant for the board to consider. And then after that is completed, if it can all be completed tonight, and we're not sure it can, but we'll try. And then the board would eventually deliberate on what you hear, the material that is presented. And then the board would issue a decision about whether or not the 3.8% is going to be enforced or a higher percentage would be permitted based upon the information that they hear. So with that introduction about what we're doing this evening, I would invite you to come up to the microphone
And we
and
can bring another chair.
we'll slide another chair over for you. Is it Mike?
I'm Michael.
Yes, Mike, welcome.
Thank you so much.
And while you're settling in, I'll swear the cones in and then you can just have a flow of your presentation. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is truthful?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And for the record, would you each state your name for the record?
Janae Cohn.
Garrett Tone?
Okay, good, we got you. And you are the landlords of this property on
Yes.
Dennison. Okay, fine. Mike, it's all yours.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, are you the owner of a property located at 213-215 Dennison Street in Highland Park, New Jersey?
Yes,
And when did you purchase this property?
we purchased the property August 18th of 2022.
August 18, 2022. Do you happen to recall the price you paid for the purchase of the property?
I do, it was 18,000, I'm sorry, 875,000. Thank you.
$875,000.
Yeah.
And when you bought this property, did you do a little research before you purchased it to find out what rents tenants were paying in the property?
We did.
And did you find that some of the rents, did you believe some of the rents that some of the tenants might have been paying were below market rent? Or
Correct. We knew that, based on our research, that the rent amounts that we were assuming and coming into, all units were rented at the time, were below fair market value.
Okay, but you chose to buy the property anyway?
Yes.
And can I ask why you bought the property anyway, knowing that the rents might have been below market?
Sure. At that time, we had the intention of coming in and bringing rents up, and we knew that the rent amounts would cover the cost of our mortgage at its assessed value. And at that time, the rent control ordinance had not yet been in place.
The rent control ordinance was not in place when you contracted to purchase the property?
Correct. And we actually did not know about the ordinance being in place until December of 2022.
All right, and in relation to the time you purchased this property in August of 2022, about when was the rent leveling ordinance put in place, do you know?
Late December. It was put in place late December,
Okay, so it was,
to my knowledge.
so it was after you purchased the property or
Correct. After.
maybe it was put in place in December 2022, or you didn't know about it until December 2022?
Both.
Okay, so, and at that point, obviously, you couldn't increase the rents to what you wanted to increase the rents, but let's go into this, describing this property. How many units are in this property?
4 units.
And are these all 2-bedroom units?
All 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
All 4 of these units are 2-bedroom, 1 bath.
Yes.
And let's go into them right real quickly.
Sure.
You had the first unit was, so I'm just gonna go into one unit at a time.
Sure.
First unit is 213-1 Dennison. And the rents you indicated on your application, $16.26 per month.
Yes.
And you indicated that you're proposing to increase it by about $474 to $2,100.
Yes.
And another unit is 213-2 Dennison. It's $1,040 per month. And you're asking to increase just $500.
Correct.
And you have 215-1, which was $1,880 per month.
Correct.
And do you believe that that was about the fair market rent for that property?
I do.
All right, so you're not really seeking a hardship increase on this one?
No. That one, we had negotiated down to 1880. So at the time, it was listed higher, but we would be
Yes.
seeking hardship increase there.
Well, it says
For,
on your,
but only for $70.
yeah, it says on your application, you're only seeking $70, which is, I think, below the threshold. And then 215-2 Dennison Street, your, the rent is 1504, and you're asking for an increase of $596 per month?
Correct.
Up to $2,100.
Correct.
And so some of these units you're increasing to $2,100. Do you have any evidence that that's the fair market rent of the property, or?
Based on research of other units that are listed in the area right now, I do.
All right, and you do have one unit in that building that's $1,880 per month, right?
Correct, and that's the least renovated unit.
That's the least renovated unit. All right, let's go into your expenses right now. You indicated that your expenses on this building for 2022 were $81,305.49.
Correct.
Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then on the next page of your application, I think there might be a typo, but we'll go into it in a second. You indicated that your rent income is $72,600 per month. I mean, 72,600 per year, I should say.
Correct.
But you indicated on the bottom that total gross income was 81,305.49. Should that have indicated 72,600 as your income?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So 72,600 is your yearly income, and your total operating expenses is 81,305. So do these expenses include any repairs? These expenses that you indicated?
Yes.
All right. 81,305?
Yes.
All right. About how much in repairs?
About 1,000 a month, 937 we averaged paying over the last 12 months.
All right. And any indication that those the need to continue to do repairs will stop anytime soon?
No, I forecast that we'll need to continue to make repairs to the units.
So is it your belief that you'll continue to lose $9,000 per year every year you own this property,
Yes.
based on the income being 72,000 and the rent, the expenses being 81,000?
Correct.
So based on this, are you seeking a hardship increase on these units?
If that's what we're calling it, but I really think we're just looking for fair rent. And
Okay. And are all four of these units occupied currently?
yes,
All four. At some point, were you also occupying one of the units?
yes,
Okay, but you're not occupying that anymore?
correct.
And I see we have these green cards attached for the tenants that were served. And I don't know if the board needs that. See if I can get that. Does the board need copies of these?
Eventually, sure.
Okay, and we also have an affidavit of publication from the newspaper that you asked us to publish the notice in this hearing in. So we could provide that to the board as well.
Yeah, thank you.
I have nothing, I have no further questions this time.
Yeah, questions from members of the board? Go ahead, Jared.
So which unit was it that you were occupying?
213-1,
Which I just, what was the existing, what is the?
the
current rent?
1626,
1626.
correct.
Okay, and then you moved out, and then you put someone in there at 1626
Correct.
at market.
No, it was actually a family member. So at that time, we just said, we just need to cover the difference and be able to wait for this. We knew that this hearing was coming up, so in light of that, we just needed to make sure that we were doing the right thing by the process of getting us to this level.
And then the 81K in expenses, that includes your mortgage payment, your
just-
insurance? No,
I'm sorry, the 81,
your annual expenses are $81,000, I thought you said.
yeah, sorry, yeah, that does include mortgage insurance tax.
There's some questions?
I have a question. How many people live in each unit?
There's 4 units. I'll refer to them as 213-1 and 2, and then 215-1 and 2. 213-1 has 2 tenants, 213-2 has 1 tenant, 215-1 has 2 tenants, and 215-2 has 2 tenants.
How long have they lived there?
I don't know the history of 213-2 or 215-2. 213-1 moved in when we moved out, which was April of this year. And then 215-1 moved in just for the 1 year, January, December, and they do not intend to move. The other 3 tenants are present today.
I think you've answered some of the questions that we submitted ahead of time, but can we go through maybe these for the ones that maybe have not been, some of it may be in here, but approximate square footage of each unit, you mentioned that already?
I don't know the exact. I think it's about I want to say it's about 1,975 maybe.
Roughly 1,000 per unit?
Yeah, roughly 1,000 per unit, but not an exact amount.
Okay. The units are renovated, updated. You mentioned that all but like 3 of them were more updated than others. Can you give us a general sense of their condition?
Sure. Two of the units are more renovated than others, in particular the kitchen and the bathroom, hardwood floor throughout those. The one unit that's renting at 1880 is the least renovated. The kitchen needs a lot of work. The bathroom needs a lot of work, to the point where the kitchen sink is tilted and things like that. And that's the one that's at 1880. The unit 213-1 and 215-2 are both more renovated. Those are the units renting at 1626 and 1504.
And you were looking to bring 3 of those units up to roughly 2,100. So one of those units, I assume, is less renovated than the other 2?
The 1880, we would only be increasing $70.
There's 4 units though, right?
Correct. The other
So,
3.
so 3 units up to 2,100, and one of those 3 units is going to be less renovated than the other 2. Is that correct? So you said 2 are more renovated than the other 2.
The other one is less, it's not renovated in the same project, but more renovated than the 1880. Larger, more kitchen space, renovated, new sink in the bathroom, and everything else is just in better condition than the 1880 unit.
We already asked how long each tenant has lived. Are they allowed to sublet?
No.
Okay. And their leases, current leases end when?
They've since expired, and they're on month to month now
Okay.
because of the termination of the lease.
Is there a working washer and dryer
Yes, in the
in each
basement.
one?
In the basement.
In the
Shared
basement?
basement.
Use is free to tenants?
Coin.
Point. You already answered this one, I think. Did the landlord occupy one of the units during the previous year? You said yes. And which unit was that again?
213-1.
That was one of the more
1626.
renovated units?
Correct.
Okay. When did you vacate the property again?
April.
April. Are any expenses that are detailed in the spreadsheet related to their individual expenses while living in the building, specifically utilities, cleaning bills, et cetera?
Well, we were- As into our own unit? No.
Okay, for utilities then, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry.
For utilities, we asked, for PSE&G, are all charges listed for common shared areas? Do tenants pay separate PSE&G bills for their individual apartments?
PSE&G is separate, water and sewer is paid by us,
All right.
which is reflected in that.
Is internet provided to all tenants?
No.
No. So water sewer looks like the March 30th, 23 utility expenses twice on there for water and sewer on your spreadsheet.
March.
So 3/30/23.
For the amount of,
348.62.
that's correct. Yep, that's a typo. 348.62.
HP, do you mind if I go back to one of your previous
Yeah,
questions?
go ahead.
The reason the question about internet, there, I believe there was a charge here somewhere that looked like to Verizon or something. And so that was where that question came from. So it says internet, it says
Yeah.
Verizon in the left vendor column, 89.99 utilities. So that's where some of these questions about what might have been associated with your unit versus common areas was.
Original spreadsheet. I think I might be looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, I might be looking at the wrong one too, because I have, it's possible that,
We're pulling this from the
No,
application.
I might be looking at the wrong one.
it's possible that 348.62 and that $89 rate Verizon, not to come up with expenses, but, I
And
don't.
there's a couple of spots with the Verizon, just to point that out.
Response?
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I want to go back to something real fast. There's one unit that was not being raised at $2,100. That was, I think my client might have testified that they're all going up to $2,100, except for the one at 215.1, but there's also 13.2 is 1040 per month right now. That's the one that's really below market. And we're only seeking a $500 increase on that one. to
Okay, that's the one with the
$1,540.
$500.
Yeah, that one's only going up to from 1040 to 1540. Obviously, subject to the board's.
So the two most renovated ones, the ones going up to 2,100, the other two that are less renovated.
One only $70, one only $500.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So really quickly, you bought the building in August of 2022. They were all occupied except for the owner occupied unit you moved into.
Yeah, it was contingent that, the sale was contingent that one tenant vacated.
Vacates. Okay, and then you have all these rents, you 1,600, 1,000, 1,880, and 1,500. They're all occupied units, or there's leases in place. You moved into one of the units, and then your business plan was to renovate the units and increase the rent to market or get them rent to market. These are your proposed like 2,100, it's based on renovated comparables, right? I have apartments, a lot of apartments in Highland Park. That's 2-bedroom, that's on the renovated, brand new kitchen, brand new bathroom, brand new tile, tub surround, brand new appliances. Those are comparable rents for brand new apartments, like completely. So my question is, how do you renovate a unit fully if they're occupied? Like, so, I mean, you're saying you're renovating, you're making repairs, R&M repairs, you're putting a new sink, you're putting in a new appliance that needs it, but these aren't you're not renovating apart. I mean, you're not doing full renovated apartments to get to the rents you're asking.
I'm sorry, do you mind just repeating the question?
Yeah, your rents that you're asking to get to fair market are based on comparables for renovated apartment, 2 bedrooms in Highland Park?
I mean, I think it's hard to say because I think there's actually some comps that range higher, 2,200, 2,300 in this area.
But do they they might have.
They might have in-unit
amenities,
laundry.
bigger
They might-
amenities. Yeah,
So
so
we're using that figure of
What are
2,200, 2,300 coming underneath that in light of the fact that it's,
but what besides the R&M that you're doing for broken things, and did you do any renovations to justify the market rents that you want to get?
I'm not totally sure I'm understanding. I think the units that we're coming into in their current state are valued at the amounts that we've indicated on the application without the renovations that we would love to do on the property, if we had the ability to do that.
Value where?
Because
Who valued them?
I'm saying even in their current state, we believe that they're valued at the rent, at the amounts that we've listed on the application.
You had indicated that you had evidence to support that. Would you be able to share those comparables?
I don't have MLS access to be able to bring up closed indications. We can talk through, comps on Zillow or apartments.com, one of which I brought with us, but if it's inadmissible because it's not a closed option from MLS, I mean, this one right here, this is the Highland Terrace Apartments rent, in for 2 bedrooms at 2150, 900 square feet, 2 bed, 1 bath, similar amenities. And again, I could go through apartments.com and Zillow.com and probably pull a bunch of these. We're not looking to go all the way up to the max of 2,300. We're really looking just to bring it.
And then the last question, and I get it, but then the one thing I've done this for a long time.
Sure.
And other places, and your lawyer probably could tell you this, there's legally permissible rents, if tenants are educated in the law and what protects them in New Jersey, there's a lot of protections against landlords coming in with if you have a vacant unit and you want to gut it and spend $30,000 and get it up, God bless you. You know, now you're going to be at the top of the market, but there's things that protect, and that's why we have this rent control board to protect from landlords from wanting to increase rents $500 with, not doing significant upgrades to the apartment. And then there's like a tenant can go to the state and appeal a $500, which is a 25% increase, and it to protect them so landlords don't do that. So
Sure.
Landlords typically will wait out a vacant apartment or buy out a tenant to access the unit so they can legally increase the rents to execute their business plan.
Sure.
It's rare to just come in and just say to tenants, hey, I'm going to give you a $500 rent increase.
Yeah, we're not looking to get to the top of the market, right? Top of the market would be $2,200, $2,300.
But it's just rare to just come in and say, I'm the new landlord. Everybody's getting 25% increase on rents. You know what I mean? It doesn't.
I don't know that. I think we're perhaps difference of opinion. I think that we're looking at rent that's.
It's the law.
That's
It's like,
no, but I'm referring to the value of the property, right? Being at 1040 or 1504. If we just simply look at that and the fact that our least renovated unit came in at 1880. I just want to be like super clear. Our least renovated unit at 1880 was rented for 1880 in January, and in its current state, the other 3 units are more renovated than the unit at 1880, and purely based on that, we believe at a minimum these units are worth more than what they're currently being rented for, outside of any renovations that we would love to be able to do to the units.
I was going to address that point, so that the 1880, there is a comparable unit right inside your own building that's rented for 1880 and it's not even renovated. So, but I think to the board's question about what fair increase is, we understand that whatever the board decides here, if the tenant doesn't want to pay the increase, and let's say this is the worst case scenario. Let's say a landlord filed an action in landlord-tenant court, where I'm in landlord-tenant court every day. If a landlord files an action in landlord-tenant court to evict a tenant for failing to pay an increase, the court will decide whether the rent increase being sought is unconscionable.
Right.
It's so the tenant really has 2 layers of protection in this particular town, because they have the rent leveling board, plus they have the Superior Court, which will decide whether the rent increase being sought is unconscionable. And we'll submit to whatever the board decides is a fair rent, and then we'll go from there.
Go ahead, Diane.
So they actually have 3 because Highland Park has a certificate of occupancy. So when a new tenant moves in, we get an inspection. Do you have COs on all your units? For each new tenant, for each tenant? Because that's what determines upgrades. I mean, that inspection will say, hey, the sink is leaning to the left, you need to replace it. And if you don't have those inspections, that's just a Highland Park regulation. That's a problem for
I believe
me.
we needed that before we closed.
Yeah.
I think we
Not that time of sale CO. I'm talking about a rental property maintenance certificate of occupancy through the town that you get every time a new tenant occupies the unit.
I'm not sure.
Well, you would be, because you'd see it right in your kitchen.
Would have gotten one for the one you rented in January. You should have gotten a CO and a landlord registration statement.
And that would come from,
Code
Town
enforcement
enforcement.
office.
Enforcement.
yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not prepared to speak to that at this time.
So
Is
that,
that something we could circle back on?
I think they should get all their paperwork and registrations from town in order before they submit to an appeal rental process, right?
right, I would think. I
Uh,
mean, Ed, I'll ask Ed, but
Yeah,
if they're not in compliance with our local ordinance, which is not this ordinance, but the property maintenance ordinance.
Well, I'm sorry, do we know that we're not in compliance? Just want to be clear for the
Or
record.
just
I
submit the
Trying to
COs.
find out.
On an inspection with the inspector.
I just want to make sure we're not stating that we're not compliant. It's just we're not sure if we are or not.
You should have gotten
Because-
copies when you bought the property. You should have gotten copies of all the COs for all the units, for all the rentals.
go ahead, Terry.
I did, I think Diane, you had asked me that question and that you're reminding me, I did ask code enforcement, they did have the COs from the purchase, but I don't believe, and we can double check this.
Sure.
And subsequent turnover and tenancy, I don't think we've gotten, at that point of vacancy and before renewal of the lease is usually we come in and inspect at that point.
Okay.
And as new landlords, they may not have been aware of that.
And it is our first time being landlords, so, we're learning the process as well. We're not looking to do anything that's not compliant.
The point's well taken, though. 215-1 is a unit that you rented after you bought the property. So you should have gotten a CO and a landlord registration statement at the time. Well, landlord registration, since it's more than 3 units, it would have been from the state anyway.
And I guess what triggers this is when you were talking about the unit that's not upgraded. I don't know what not upgrade means. You said something about the sink. I mean, that would be permitted.
I can't comment without, you know what I mean? I think they've all passed, whatever inspections that they needed to pass properly, when we purchased the home, and everything's working and in good condition.
That's not.
But, sure,
I think
but,
Jared can speak on that.
You're right. Okay, but it's not up to, I'm a landlord in the town.
Sure.
and I have to abide by every rule that the town.
and we're
has,
looking
it's
to as
fine.
well. I mean,
But
I
you're
just,
asking for something now from my time and everybody's here, the town's time to help you with your business plan to increase the rents. But and we don't know, you could be compliant, but you don't know if you've had code enforcement go into your units to make sure they're habitable for the current tenants that you're trying to increase the rents on. Right? We don't know. It's been almost a year since you got that.
is this the
CO.
same thing as the, please excuse my ignorance, but the green card?
No,
Component
green
is
card's
separate for
in
the
a
building, right?
cyclical 5-year
5-year
inspection.
inspection. Okay, so you're not referring to that. You're referring to.
I'll talk to you afterwards. Yeah, it's a very good point, though. I'll take that.
Other questions now? So back to the list. Do we have documentation to substantiate the mortgage costs, the monthly statement? And we need to clarify if property taxes are included in the mortgage amount that you submitted.
I think we have them broken down as separate line items on the application. The mortgage payment is 43,029, and the property taxes was 21,360.
Right, but I think we wanted to verify we weren't double counting anything if they took the mortgage payment off the bill that comes every month.
Right.
So just corroborate if it's part of, pull it out. I'm not saying that isn't property taxes, I'm just, probably isn't, but we wanted to make sure that wasn't double count.
Not that, at least one mortgage statement.
No, I don't. This
It's
is-
easy enough, when you get out, you can just.
Yeah, no,
double
that's
check.
just.
Inspections, is the NJDCA inspection annual? We asked this.
5 years. That's the 5
It's now
years.
6-year inspection.
Oh, 6
And they
years.
just put a new rule into effect a few months ago that requires annual recertifications, but the inspections are still every 6 years. Yeah, it's a new rule.
Say
I
again?
got blindsided with it. They put this new rule in effect. It was actually right before the pandemic started, right before the pandemic, 2019, they put this new rule into place. But DCA just implemented it finally, where you go onto the DCA website, you can actually click your button to renew, you do your annual registration on the anniversary of your
But the inspection is still every 6
the
years.
inspection still every 6 years. Yes,
Click a button once every year to make it.
exactly. Click a button, pay $10.
Yeah.
All right, insurance, please itemize these costs and or provide further documentation. That's what we asked for. The insurance costs.
You don't have the insurance bill with you, do you?
No,
Okay.
Can we get those itemized? And then finally, the security deposit, this should not be an expense, as it's a return of the tenant's money. And
Yeah.
I think this may have been
It was included.
we
in
may
the
have
spreadsheet.
just
listed as an expense.
forgot to remove the line item. Maybe not summed it, but forgot to remove it because it was just a larger tracker.
That concludes the list of pre-submitted questions. Do we have others?
I
Go
just
ahead,
wanted one more, just because it looks like you may need to go back based on some of the other, there are a couple utilities, PSE&G. Some are lower, like it sounds like common area kind of thing, but then some, and it said unit utilities first floor, and they're, depending 100, 162, they range. So I just wanted to confirm those are common
No, we
area.
may have included.
So I think
Yeah, I
they might
think I
have
was looking
been
at the wrong
one of the
spreadsheet.
units. That was my
Sure.
concern. So
We'll
just-
revise that.
Okay.
Yeah,
when I saw that.
thank you.
Any questions? Jason?
I would just be curious, I think it would be helpful to maybe have some, submitted to have some pictures of the units.
Sure.
Absolutely.
So we can get a good look of the condition.
Sure.
And then just, maybe some documentation that you can get of the comparable, so you can just take a look, maybe see some pictures and try to find something that's a true comparable.
Other questions?
Oh, by the way, so Highland Terrace was the comp that you used, and it's got a full building staff there 24/7. It's got Highland.
No, we'll pull again recent comps, including, our units.
Count on us having Jared here.
But you definitely, it'll help with
Walking
us,
Zillow.
definitely pictures, maybe a video of what the upgrades you did, and understandably, your 1040 is well below market. But definitely, getting you to a market renovated rent which in a comparable is important, so we can see, meaning show us why you can justify, the tenants there don't have a reason, they can move out, or maybe they can't because they can't afford to move out, right? So, because there's a cost of, landlords know there's a cost of moving a tenant, that there's a break even for a tenant where and there's an elasticity of it where they'll stay in the unit because they can't afford to move out. So you can raise the rents, and if the board approves it, they'll have to pay it. But if we're going to help you get you to market, you have to help us understand why your particular apartments deserve to be comparable market rents versus, and a little description of what you've done in the units to make them upgrade the units for these tenants.
Or if there are renovations. it would
Right.
be good- Just good to know that.
Yeah, so I guess what we're asking for, in addition to maybe pictures, is also just a more substantive, a report of the more substantive, like, improvements that you've made, right? Anything that you've put into it, and maybe a more substantive description of what actually is in there. You said they're in pretty good condition, but what does that mean in terms of the appliances? How new are they? Like how recently do you know, the kitchens, the
Are they
bathrooms?
stainless steel? Are they newer? Are they brand new appliances? Are you put into the ceramic countertops? Are the bathrooms renovated, or you know what I mean? Or are they 5, 6, 7, 8 years old? Or I don't, just get us to the market rent that you want, that you're trying to hit. And rather than just, what you submitted, it looks to me like it's just normal R&M expenses that you're doing to just keep the units for the traps from leaking, the light bulbs, new light fixtures, just why do we need to get to 2,100 or 2,200 or whatever?
And also, will those inspections be done? The CO inspections?
Well.
We'll check. We'll check
Well,
to see
and I
if
guess
they
would
were
have
done.
to, come
We
in.
have to apply code enforcement.
And we can make that happen. and turn it around.
We know at least one of them was rented by my client, and that he better have gotten a CO, and if he didn't, he should apply now. And then there's other ones that were rented out before he bought the property, they should still have a CO from that prior owner.
Sure. It should.
At least one of those units right there, 215-1, has been rented out since then, and
Yes.
Diane says that should have already happened.
Who's when you rent them, that the COs, from the housing is good for the duration of that lease. So if the landlord that previously owned it rented them and did everything by the book, you'll have those COs. So it's not like you'll have to run and grab them.
Any last comments? All right, thank you for your time.
One,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, one little comment. I don't know if this is obvious, and again, this is our first time doing this, so pardon. Comments here, but we have every intention of fixing up the units and making them look nicer. But as it currently stands with the amount that we are receiving in rent, like you said, we're just covering all of our expenses right now. So at a minimum, we want to be able to have a little bit of cushion. God forbid, even a roof, like if a roof goes out right now with the current income that we're getting from the current rents, we don't have the ability to even fix that. So with the rents being so low, one of $1,000, $1,054 a month, it's very hard to even consider making any adjustments right now to renovate and help there. So when Garrett was saying that we're trying to get, a fair amount per month, it's with the intention of covering all of our costs, emergencies, if anything were to happen, we need to account for that, and also renovating the units as swiftly as possible.
The bank, when you got a loan, did they require you to put some equity or cash in a reserve account to cover? It's called capital improvements for the property that's sitting there for that you can, then let's say a roof goes for $22,000 that you can access and get approved through the bank. A lot of times they do that, and the bank will require you.
Correct. And yes, we do have savings, not we don't have anything, but the picture I'm trying to paint is that if we just keep depleting our savings to put into the house, and we're not even covering, our expenses with the monthly income, we're at a complete loss, because now not only are we not able to cover all of our expenses, but now we're taking it into our savings to then put into the house, and it just feels like.
Yeah.
feels-
Sometimes it's like you paid a lot of money for the property, and it was almost a bad investment. I don't know, we'll.
You said it, not me.
Not helpful.
Sounds like we're gonna have to pick a day to come back, right?
Yeah, well,
I'd
why
like
don't you
to ask
make
questions.
coordinate?
Yeah,
with
there's
us
some more
regarding-
information, but obviously we're going to ask the folks here if they have any questions, and then we can start with their testimony. But I think there's more material we've asked you to return to the next meeting that we had.
Are we asking them to take questions from or are we?
Yeah, I think they're here, and the
Are
residents,
you
the tenants
trying to
are
field some
here.
questions from the audience? Okay,
So
from the gallery.
If there are any questions that you as the tenants may have questions, you'll have a chance to testify. But if you have any specific questions after you heard the presentation, now would be the time to identify yourself, tell us what unit, and then ask your questions. Or any member of the public can do that.
the tenants, so we'll just say.
Okay, so you'll wait. Okay,
Well, great then. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And we will,
Thank you.
Now, we're not meeting in December.
We could not find a date
right.
in December, so we did pick a January date.
right.
If someone has the list handy.
January date is going to be
25th.
January 25th.
January 25th, and this will that announcement will constitute public notice, so I don't have to re-notify anyone.
Correct. So it's a continuation of this hearing. So I guess the audience should know, and the tenant should know, you won't get another card or anything in the newspaper, but you're welcome to come back on January
25th.
25th, 5:30
Double check
here.
that.
And we'll continue the hearing. We'll get some more information and then you'll be invited to testify. And you should probably wait to testify until we get all the material on the record. Yes, sir.
Can we request to testify today, because we were actually told that today would be the day. to
Yeah,
testify.
I think we should hear if they came today. I think we should.
Sure. You want to testify today from what you've heard so far? Sure. Yeah, I guess you could step down because they don't have questions for you and you can listen to their testimony. So why don't we invite you to sit up here? We can pick you up on the microphone. Maybe we'll start with the ladies. And first of all, we'll swear you all in. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is truth? Thank you very much. And starting here to, what, have your name?
I'm Lori Sobel,
Could you spell your last name, Lori?
Sobel.
And do you live in one of the units?
I do.
And what one?
213-2.
213-2?
Yes, second
All
floor.
right, great. And while we're going to skip you, we're going to go to this other lady.
Michelle Irving,
And
one of the tenants. I'm in 215-2.
215-2. Michelle, could you spell your last name too?
IRV is in Victoria, ING.
Thank you. And sir.
And my name is Nicholas Shaket Levy. That's going to be a fun one to spell. So Nicholas is Nicolas, and then last name is CHOQUBTTE -LE as in Victor Y. Sorry.
Okay, and your unit?
Also in 215-2.
215-2, okay. All right, you're under oath, and whatever you'd like to tell the board, you are certainly welcome to do so.
Yeah, maybe I can start, and I think we'll each cover kind of different parts of points that we want to bring up. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify. I think we want to start out by saying that we certainly acknowledge there are cases, there are valid cases where there may be exemptions to the rent control ordinance. For example, as we were talking about investments in capital, or if there's damage to the property. But it's our contention that this is not one of those cases. And we've prepared copies of a memo that we've sent to Terry and can circulate to members of the board and to the landlord and his representation as well. We think there are several costs in the application that are either flat out wrong or not legitimate to include in a hardship application. And we can detail some of those just as a quick kind of summary. As we mentioned before, there's a security deposit for $1,900. That was the previous landlord's money that should have been transferred to the current landlord. So we don't think that should be included as an expense. As mentioned before, there's a double counting of the March water bill for $330. In addition, other water bills, when we check the actual town website for the water costs for our property, are overestimated on the application. And then, as mentioned before, there's actually several costs that we think are personal costs to the unit of where the landlord was residing, including 4 Verizon bills, 9 PSE&G bills that are for the first floor, cleaning bills, which we were not given notification as tenants that there was any property level cleaning, and it certainly doesn't appear to us that there was any property level cleaning, so we think those are unit level cleaning bills, as well as blind installation for the unit in which the landlord was residing. We all have covered our own blinds. So we don't think that these are costs that should be included as far as like property management costs in the hardship application. Further, there's a cost for a washer and dryer, which we had communicated to the landlord when he purchased the property that actually we had purchased the washer for everybody's use in all 4 units in the property.
The tenants purchased.
The tenants have purchased it, yeah. that we had purchased our own washer because previously when we moved in, there wasn't a washer.
And there's a washer and dryer cost to that the landlord's claiming?
For 2,000.
2,225,
2025.
Do we know what that
cost is.
is?
He did purchase a new washer. We had purchased, sorry.
No, no.
We purchased a washer during the height of the pandemic. We have documentation demonstrating that this was a communal washer. All tenants could use it. We have documentation with the landlord that we intended for it to continue to be communal. He did not know we bought it when he purchased it. We informed him and said we were happy to let people continue to use it. They bought a new washer and dryer, so our washer is sitting in the basement, and eventually we will also have to pay to remove the washer. And it's also coin operated, so we do question, if this is about a hardship and there was a free washer, it just, we wonder about that.
Yeah, so there's the cost of the washer. Again, it's the landlord's prerogative, obviously, to buy a new washer, but again, this is a hardship application, so we question that, as well as the extra money that we as tenants have had to pay now to do our own laundry. And yeah, so I think, and then there's other costs that we think has been raised by the board, or kind of one-time maintenance or startup costs related to inspections that we question whether that should be considered in an ongoing hardship cost.
Like which one?
Like we had talked about in inspection.
Security cameras.
Yeah. Security signs, security cameras.
Yeah, Middlesex County on page annual fees. $456.
That's it.
On the second page, I think.
There's an annual fire department fee, which obviously it's annual, we understand that, but then the housing inspection, 56.
That fee is a 6-year, should be amortized over 6 years.
So all that to say, we, in the material that we prepared for the board, we have gone back and recalculated the landlord's expenses, accounting for some of these discrepancies, and again, we'll share this with everybody. But the sum of it is, we think instead of the $8,700 in operating losses that the landlord claims in the application, we think if we account for these kind of double countings, incorrect charges, the charges that aren't property management, we claim that the losses are more around the order of $1,200. So significantly less than what the landlord is claiming. Oh, right. And the other thing that I meant to mention is, and Michelle will talk a little bit more about this, and Lori might talk about it more as well, but the landlord has had previous opportunities to raise the rent, at least in accordance with the existing rent control ordinance for this past year, and chose not to do so. And so that's also foregone income that we've also included in our calculations that we've mentioned, that could have been income that the landlord had made in addition to the income they made from the washer and dryer.
So you did not get, during your term since their ownership, they didn't, on a lease renewal, they didn't increase you the 3.5 or 3.2%. So they held you flat?
Yeah. So those are kind of the costs. The last point that I'll make is, I think, as we've seen, there's a lot of inaccuracies in the application. There's some typos, the cost was put in as income, and et cetera. I mentioned that for two substantive reasons. One is that it took us a lot of time to go through all of this, and we put in conservatively, we estimate at least 30 hours of work after our normal work days, after teaching, just trying to figure out what the costs were and double checking, doing the homework that frankly we think should have been done already. We bothered Terry a lot and her staff. So it's a lot of time spent answering to this, what we think is an incomplete application. And furthermore, we think that, this was presumably reviewed and signed by the lawyer who, knows these issues really well. We think it's just indicative of kind of a lack of attention to this process. And we think, especially since this is the first application, we urge the board to think about the precedent of what's the bar that landlords need to show in order to submit an application and get an exemption, because I could see that there'd be a temptation to say, okay, they're proposing a 50% increase, a 39% increase. Maybe that seems so high, but maybe something in the middle might be more reasonable. But I would argue that any exemption that's granted would provide an incentive for landlords to kind of slap something together really quickly that might not be accurate, just to get a few extra percentage points of that. So those are the points that I would like to make.
I'd like to speak a little bit about the timeline and this process of the hardship application. I also have some information that I'd like to share with the board. I think it's relevant because it demonstrates just a delay in submitting the hardship application. So again, getting to the heart of like how urgent is this hardship. In terms of the timing of the purchase, the landlord purchased it in, he mentioned August 2022 as part of the closing. All of our leases had expired and had been moved month to month. So at any point, he had the opportunity to put in a new lease and increase the rent before this ordinance came in. This ordinance, began to be debated in October. Certainly, we were aware as community members. It obviously went through in December. There were, again, also, we did not have a new lease until March. And at that point, they could have increased according to the ordinance of the 0.475 increase that was allowed. In delaying giving us a lease, we're also concerned because we're academics, so we really need a September to September timeline. So we do request, like, regardless of the outcome, that if the board is able to request, we were supposed to have a lease ending September 30th, 2024. So if the board is able to grant that regardless, that's really important for us, for academics, because academia is a bit unpredictable. I'm at Rutgers, we have a very low stipend. I also don't get paid in the summer, so I have to plan accordingly. So it can be really challenging to move mid-year. Many renters in Highland Park are in the same boat. So we did receive we were informed in March 2023 that the landlord planned to submit a hardship application. So I proposed a 6-month lease from April 1st to September 30th, 2023 to allow sufficient time to submit a hardship. That was our understanding. So he could have submitted a hardship after August 18th. We agreed to this timeline and signed a lease. We informed the landlord on June 25th, more than 3 months in advance, of our intent to renew the lease for 1 year in accordance with our lease. However, we have not received a new lease. As per the terms of our lease, we requested a 1-year renewal, and the landlord should have given us renewal terms within 30 days before the lease ended on September 30th. And we got contradictory information of hardship. So on September, we were informed of 2 different statuses. So on September 1st, it was indicated by email that a hardship application was submitted, which was incorrect by the landlord. And the landlord's legal representation indicated by certified mail that there was a contemplated application suggesting that the application had not yet been submitted. Within our lease, it's understood in clause 30 that we should have a new lease sort of provided within 30 days. So we sent a mail, certified mail, requesting clarification on the status of the hardship application, and again requesting a 1-year renewal as per the terms of the clause 30. And then we were officially notified a few days later that the hardship application was submitted on September 7th. As mentioned, there's many mistakes in the hardship application. It seems very rushed. And so to us, it just leads to the question of the urgency of the need of the hardship, given that we ended up having to spur them on to submit the hardship instead of giving us a 1-year lease, as was required as per the terms of the lease, which you all, I think, have a copy of, and we can provide. And additionally, there was a missed opportunity of not submitting or not increasing our rent in accordance with the ordinance. Additionally, I also want to quickly speak about, since market rate did sort of was brought up, I do question, is the intent of this about a hardship, which my understanding is, you know, if there's a serious event, major capital cost or something for an apartment, that is sort of a hardship, or is this about meeting market rate, which to me is a different question. Certainly our unit is has some renovations that was done by the previous landlord. We have not had any renovations since we've moved in. We also have a number of deficiencies, and I also can circulate comps and, you know, that I think demonstrate why the rate of 2,100 is not appropriate for this unit. While we are in a 2-bed, 1-bath, about 975 square feet. Our main amenity is a washer and dryer, which is point operated. We cover all utilities with the exception of water and sewer. While it's classified as a 2-bedroom and legally would be classified as that, we question the utility of that. The second bedroom has French glass doors that do not fully close. So there's no privacy, and they don't close. I can, obviously you'll get photos and videos of that. There's no closet in the second bedroom. There's no overhead range hood above the stove, which causes issues for cooking and is also a well-documented health hazard for tenants due to the natural gas. We have no dishwasher in unit. We have no in-suite laundry. We have no air conditioning. We're on the second unit. We also have no ceiling fans. We have bought our own microwave. And so in comparison to the comps that I have, including which I'm happy to share, that are priced between 19 and 2,100, include at least, like, they all have a range of air conditioning. They all have overhead range hoods for cooking. They also often come with washer and dryers and additional community amenities. So I do question the amount.
I would just add, I think they covered a lot of the main points. But one, I guess, question I have is similarly, like, is the purview of the board to achieve market rate, or is it to kind of fill in the gaps of their hardship and, you know, what their deficit is? A lot of the proposed increases they're all different for each unit. So, you know, I know the board's spoken a bit about, like, what is an unconscionable increase. So like a 48%, a 39%, is that we would just ask the board to take things into account in terms of, you know, for instance, I'm one person in one unit. I couldn't afford a 48% increase. A lot of the discrepancies are kind of documented in a memo that they put together. So if it's possible to just kind of share that, that's kind of what we were hoping to do. But no.
And you have copies that you want to present to the board? Okay.
See how many copies you got.
I can run some.
Yeah, we'll make sure you get some.
Each paper clip's the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Is
Oh,
this
there's plenty of copies.
first page the part of the lease that you cited that you would have a copy of?
Also, the one
I think
that's
these are,
circulated from,
everything in a paper clip's the same.
yes.
Oh, yes.
The one that's
So we have plenty of copies.
There should be.
I didn't.
Is your start, because actually some of ours,
I do
it
have
should
some-
start dear members. So,
Yes, each paper is one set, yes.
This is what was
one
coming
of
out.
them, make sure yours starts dear members of the.
Yeah. So there's one that's circulating this way that details the specific.
Oh, there's two
contract costs.
different ones. Oh, they
One is circulating
converged
this
and I
way,
got
so
confused.
About the timing.
There we go. So you
I need this
Here's-
one, yeah.
I'm
You
sorry, I
didn't
only
get those.
purchased 3
That's
copies
okay.
of our lease.
That's
Oh,
okay.
this is
We'll
three.
give that to
That's
Terry.
fine, Bill.
And then there's this.
Terry,
Terry,
this.
they only have 3.
I just want to make sure I have everything. That was
So
handed out.
this is 3
This is
copies of
3
the
copies
lease.
of the lease.
Oh, release,
here.
okay.
Can I ask a question?
One is dear members and one is tenants of 215-2.
Yes.
Okay,
Go ahead, Diane.
sorry about that.
Because this is separate question. How
That
should you get
is
there?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's the last thing I was thinking. I'll make sure.
We moved in September 2019.
Okay. And Lori, how long?
These are all the same.
I've been a renter in Highland Park for probably like 12 years, but in this unit, it's probably 6 or 7 years.
Can I ask, you mentioned
I
being
missed how
academics or
long you
graduate
guys were in?
students?
Yes.
So you're on a fixed income right now, and I actually know what that income is. This would represent this increase roughly about what, 25-30% of your take home pay for the month?
Yeah, I'm also, I'm an international student, so I actually get paid less, because they take the 14%. So yeah, it's near 40%.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Pauline.
What was your unit?
My unit is 213-2.
213.
Yes.
I have, so just to make sure I have all the bits. Dear members, tenants of 25 would like to submit
Uh-huh.
a lease agreement and market comparers.
How about that?
That I just, that's tenancy. So I have 4 pieces of paper, okay, 4 chunks, I'll say.
I got
Um,
2 dear members. This one?
I don't know.
You have the.
They got
second one then?
uncollated
I have
ones.
Okay. And then there was a.
And I have some more over here.
How much are you paying in rent in your unit?
The lease, there were only 3 copies.
Okay.
So.
There were only 3.
I have one of them, so I have a complete
one.
It was rented
Ed
originally as a
probably-
1-bedroom, but
Alright.
I don't
Yep.
disagree if you could use it.
And they
as-
don't-
She's giving testimony.
I'm so
That's
sorry.
what
Can we?
Yep,
Sorry.
order.
That's your-
Sorry.
Give you some,
Can
like,
you
Yeah.
start again? I'm so sorry.
so
I have to-
is that a set?
Give us a second. Sorry.
But you have it. as long
I
as
do, so
Terry
I
has
can
it,
run
we're
one off
good.
if necessary.
If Terry has it.
Terry has a full set.
I have a full
So
set.
we can get digital copies of that.
Okay,
Mike?
All right.
you have a full set, Ed?
Yes, but I'm gonna give them to.
Good, and then I'll make sure
Thank
you
you.
get one there.
Order. My best John Burke voice. Order. All right. British Parliament jokes, anyone? Okay, let's, all right, now let's take, were you in the middle of answering a question, and can we hear that question again? Where did that come from? Lucinda, was that you, or Jared?
I
Sure, go
asked her,
ahead.
she's paying the 1040 and it's is it a legal 2-bedroom?
I'm
Are they
not,
all the same size, all the units?
they're all the same size. And I just, to your question, when I originally moved in with the prior landlord, it was rented to me as a 1-bedroom. The prior lease didn't call it a 2-bedroom. It was kind of like a storage room, the way they described it. I don't disagree. If you needed to, you could use it as, another room. I don't know what the legal definition.
And how long have you guys been living in the building? I know, we have 1 lease or multiple leases here?
In this building, I've been here 6 or 7 years.
Wow.
Michelle and I have been in our unit since September 2019, so that would be just over
4 years. Other question.
You've been given rent increases every year except for this year?
The previous one.
Yeah, we had rent increases, like kind of
It was by 2%.
inflation, like basically on pace with inflation, 2 to 3%.
And you guys went through a lot of detail, and actually your presentation is very good with this. But to understand the events that have purchased, the new landlord purchased the property in August 2022. You were issued you were on month to month at that time because it was the pending sale. Is that why, or just?
Yes, technically our lease was due at the end of July 2022. Our landlord indicated because the sale was going through, part of it was to not sign a new lease. So, I mean, I don't think this was legal now, but we just didn't have one. The new landlords put us on a month-to-month lease, and then in November, they gave us a notice to quit.
When they gave you a notice that said you're now month to month, or did you sign something that said, okay, to the month to month?
We did get a notice month to month. Yeah. When the new when the sale was done, we got a notice saying like you were now on to month to month.
Yeah.
Because,
And did you sign anything that said you agree to a month-to-month lease?
can't remember for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, it's if you have a lease renewal or whatever that is, could you provide it? Because
Yeah,
it's important to know that if
Okay.
you sign something that said, I agree to a month-to-month lease, or sometimes legally the lease renews, just keeps renewing, 12 more months, 12 more months, 12 more months. Okay, so you have to agree to a 12 month-to-month lease.
okay.
And then, so you received your month-to-month notices, you may have signed them, we don't know, but anyway, then you assumed you were month-to-month, and then, then I guess December rolls around and you hear about the rent control. But there was no, from August through December, there was no lease from the landlord, or there was no notice that you were going to get an increase in rent.
There was, towards the end of November, he provided a notice to quit with the intention of a new lease coming in January 1st with a significant, I think, the increase that he's proposing.
There's a little bit less. It was, yeah, we were talking with the landlord and it was around $2,000 per month. So it would have still been
Yes.
it was a $400 increase from what we were paying, $500 increase from what we were paying. And that's what we learned about, like the potential passage of the rent control ordinance.
And that was in January.
That was in December.
The notice to quit came out.
Came in,
And
I think at the end of November 2022
with new leases.
yes, to sign by the end of December 2022. But the rent ordinance passed in December 2022, so it made.
It had made it null and void almost.
Exactly. So we did not receive a new, we didn't receive a lease until March 2023, like a 6-month lease, while we work through this hardship process.
Got it. Thank you.
Other questions? See none. Thank you for being here today and sharing your testimony. Are we going to want to discuss this tonight, or do we want to postpone discussion until January 25th when we have all of the requested materials?
I'd like to discuss it a little bit.
You want to just do some discussion tonight? Okay, we'll keep that on there. Oh, we have public comment. Do we have other? Thank you, Diane. Other members of the public want to speak? Do we have any on Zoom?
Oh, we did. Let me just see if I have any. I see
See if we
2
have
people
anybody.
online. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand. No, let me see if they're just
You
listening.
want to come and speak, please?
Hello, my name is Doug Leung. I live in 19 Raritan Avenue, Parktown Apartments. I spoke last month at the Rent Control Board. Just want to register my continued concern about the water and sewer bills at the Parktown Apartments owned by JCF Living Properties. You know, I think we've had several conversations
Yep.
about it, so just wanted to
I
check in.
did share your materials with this guy and I'm kind of waiting on him.
Awesome.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, and then again, I'd like to thank these guys, these tenants here for their testimony. And I appreciate the addition of the question about the purpose of the rent control boards. I think it's going to be a continual issue. I think this has been brought up in October as well. If we allow this increase, I think it's going to open some floodgates, and I think that's going to be concerning. And I think this group needs to have a conversation about the purpose of rent control. Is it here to increase rents to market rate when market rate may not be affordable for a lot of people? And you know, that's going to be a problem as well. So appreciate the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Any other members of the public want to speak? All right, see none, let's move on to discussion. Jared, you are up.
No, the gentleman there, these two gentlemen brought up a good point with the appeals process and what we're doing. And it's our intent to when there's a hardship because of a capital event, and to provide the tenants with service and housing that, so that there can continued rent and we don't displace tenants, and is there a reasonable increase that can be acceptable that we could agree on? Or is the rent control board taking into consideration a new landlord who purchased the property a year ago and had the in-place rents, can look at the expenses that, for the most part, that they're going to incur, and knowing for them to make money, know that they have to increase the rents considerably on everybody as soon as they buy the property. And so are we helping landlords execute their business plan, or are we providing hardship to landlords that had force majeure events or boiler events or some type of event to help them so that they can continue to provide housing for the tenants? So I think that's a scope we have to discuss, because this case is more of a landlord that bought a property that was break even, plus or minus, and the business plan was to take those in-place tenants and increase the rents and to make money on the property. And what's the intent of this board?
I put myself on stack. I think that's a really good question that I think we do need to discuss. And there was a comment made at the end by landlord, I'm sorry, I forget your name. Janae, saying that, like, you need capital in order to invest in the property to bring it up to market rents. And after Jared made this point that, like, these units that are going for that amount are really fully renovated, brand new apartments, he's saying, well, we can't get the capital to do that unless we charge more rent. But the problem is you're charging rent then on an apartment that's not up to that standard, right? That's not valued at that amount, trying to get the capital to bring the apartment up, and the business plan really.
Well, technically,
right.
If they can't, what would happen is if we didn't take this into account, we would approve the landlord's proposed rent increases. These tenants, they'd get new leases, they couldn't afford it, they would move out. And then the landlord would then be able to renovate the units and charge more, but at the same time, it perpetuates the vacancy of the units, because these tenants can't pay.
It also displaces some of our community members.
It perpetuates the vacancy. They would displace the tenants. So we have to decide what our intent is with our appeals process.
Sorry, who had their hand raised? Did Diane, were you up? Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Does
Sorry.
the ordinance shed light on the purpose? I would like to.
Yeah, the ordinance under section 32127 says a landlord who is unable to meet his mortgage payments, expenses, and maintenance costs, or is operating at a loss, shall be entitled to apply for hardship increase to the board. So that's kind of the standard for the beginning of analyzing whether or not somebody qualifies for hardship. The other part of the ordinance, which is relevant, the hardship appeals will be based on a fair rate of return. It's not a market rate of return necessarily, but a fair rate of return, which would allow for just cause, the maintenance of the property, taking into consideration the costs associated with managing the property. So we do have some standards set forth in the ordinance, and those are the standards you have to be guided by when you would decide this or any other hardship appeal.
Go ahead.
I recall Lucinda coming to meetings and asking about tenant protection from exorbitant increases. And I thought that was what kicked off the rent leveling.
Yes, that
discussion.
is what happened. That's correct.
So maybe,
That's
and
my
that was
rent's
what
gonna be
I
consistent.
understood the rent leveling ordinance to do that, and to be good for the whole community. I mean, any ordinance we have is for the entire community. So people do need to make a profit on their investment. Whether or not this was a good investment, I can't say, but I think it's a balance. We want tenant protection and we want a fair and equitable return on an investment. And we want it to benefit the whole community, because if properties aren't up to snuff, then that affects everybody else. And if we're driving community members out of town because they can't afford to live here, that affects all of us. So I think it's a very delicate balance that we're looking at.
Colleen, I think we asked for more information, and I think we need to wait on that information, because that will give us a insight into how the apartment looks, and I think it will lead us to come to a fairer decision. So we will have more info, and we heard what everybody said. So I feel like the information that we requested is very vital.
I think you're right. I think though, and we're getting to the heart of the intent of the board, I think then what we then decide is not like what's a fair rent, but is it a hardship? And then you have to take into account this landlord has had the property for 1 year. They knew when they bought it what the expenses were. Okay, they knew what the rents were. The intent, and I may be wrong, was to not upgrade the units to rent to, and you cannot do that with tenants in place. Okay, it's against the law, where that's why we're here. You can't just arbitrarily say, I want to charge $500 more a rent. You can't. I mean, you can, but even the lawyer over there was saying that that'll go to in front of a landlord tenant judge, who will look at the case just sort of like we are and will say it's either legally permissible or not. So then it has to go back to, is this a hardship, or are we helping execute a business plan of a landlord that bought it last year and now is trying to actually, two things. He or she can either raise the rents and the tenants will incur the increase if they can, and they've gotten their business plan and their return on investment, or if they can't and we approve it, or in some measure, and they can't afford it, they will be displaced. And then the landlord can go in and make those appropriate upgrades to get these rents. So I guess you're right. We wait to see what.
Because the tenants told us their side pretty complete. So we need to complete the other side. And then we can come for a decision. That's my thought.
Adding myself to stack here. So the two parts of the ordinance that Ed read, the first part was eligibility for even being, that was like step one, which had to be met before we could even move on to step two, which was just deciding that what a fair return was, right? So hardship has to be demonstrated.
Yes.
And I don't know that that's been demonstrated until we get that new information.
That's why I said we should get.
And when we get it, it's like
When we get it,
it's not just one-time charges, it's recurring. So don't put in the green card that was that you amortize over a course of 5 years what your costs are. Your R&M costs, you've been operating it a year now, you know what your R&M costs are. You have to amortize over the course of operating a property. Annual costs versus one-time charges that you're incurring, which come with startup costs of any investment, right? So I don't think that's a fair assessment of ongoing operating costs.
I think there's actually several of these need to be amortized, right? Like any of the appliances, any of the.
When they get us
everything,
all of it,
cameras.
I'll spend a half an hour at the office just going through it and saying, this needs to be amortized, this needs stuff. I can go through it in 3
Go ahead, Pauline.
It seems to me this had quite a few discrepancies. what the landlord said. So I feel like maybe when we get to it, we'll compare it with what the tenant said, or the landlord can revise if he wants to give a fairer or a more accurate, because this doesn't seem fair to be fair.
Can we get cash balances too, so we know if they have reserves to cover a roof? Like, is there a bank operating reserve that they require, that, so we know if there's a hardship, do we know if there is a hardship, or if there's $6 million sitting in the bank that they can use?
You guys got $6 million sitting around?
I don't think that any of these numbers reflect any sinking funds. There's no, these numbers don't, there's nothing built in for reserves for replacement in these
You
numbers.
mean negative carry? Sure. Yeah,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
What is, again, pardon the ignorance here, but what is considered a hardship in this case? Like, what is it? A certain amount of profit that a business owner or an investor might not see, value in, or is it breaking even? Is it net, like, what is considered a hardship?
I mean, breaking even, you're still building equity, but Jared, do you want to answer that?
Sure. When you asked us that, we don't know what your equity and investment was, or your ongoing, or what you have in your capital reserves, but did we determine, is it a high single digit? Is it a low double digit? Is it a 12% yield over annual yield? But it's based on what your equity in the property was. But then it goes back to what a hardship is. I mean, like, honestly, you guys bought the property. I buy properties all the time. I know what you should know when you pay $875,000, what your current income is, your in-place rents, your current income, and what your operating expenses are. Granted, there's always one-time hits, and that's why the bank will require you to put $15,000 or whatever in a capital reserve that you can fund to put a new boiler in, or a new roof, or new windows, or whatever the expenses are. I am sure you guys won't deny your business plan was to increase the rents, because when you bought the property, it was advertised that the rents should be $2,100. But with that, you have two problems. You have to upgrade your units to meet the comparable rents in the market, and two, you've got three or four tenants in the building that to get to market, you have to displace, and to do that legally, you can't. I don't, even in New York City, all over New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, landlords can't just, that's what predatory landlords were doing all over the last 10 or 15 years, wherein you can't just come into buy a property and then not arbitrarily, you have a goal of what your return you need to be, raise the rents 25%, 30% to get to your return. You have to abide by rent renewals and who vacates, and then you can renovate units. So there's a whole set of guidelines and laws associated with buying an income producing property that you can't just, this gentleman here said we're setting a precedent where if every landlord came in and bought a property and was losing money on it, and then because they bought it a year ago and their rents are below market, and they're losing money or breaking even or losing a couple $1,000s every month, you coming in and just saying, okay, well, I'm not making any money on the property because I paid $875,000 for it, and the current yield is a negative 4%, and I have to raise everybody's rent $400 or $500 to get there. It's a hardship, but you're setting a precedent that it's been fought for years. Predatory landlords can't do that, and I know we discussed before that we're protecting the little landlord, where you want to help them out, but it's sensitive, but it's not. It's just, it's almost black and white. You know, we're here, I thought, and if there is an issue with a, you know, the taxes went up 40%, or something happens that there's a one-time event that impacts the financial ongoings of a property, then we could discuss it. But this was a business plan that happened in August of 2022. And the business plan was to raise everybody's rent. And they're going to eventually get the rents up, and they're going to have to put a lot of, you're going to put $15,000 or $20,000 or plus into each unit to get them to where they're comparable to the $2,100 or 22 or 23 that you see. You will get there. They're all graduate students. They're going to go through their graduate programs or move out in a year or 2 or 6 months, and you're going to eventually capitalize on that. But I know from being a landlord, it's not a, you know, you could sit on a property for 5 years before it makes capital. I know that you don't want to hear that, but that's really what it is. Are we helping people with their business plan, or are we protecting tenants and hardships? Is this a hardship? And that's what she was asking. I don't know if it's a hardship or just helping them quickly facilitate their business plan.
Can I just mention, I think we'll have a better picture once we submit the new income expenses figures, once we correct some of the disparities, some of the problems with the income expense report. We'll have a better idea. Just to point out, I don't think my clients are looking to displace anyone, even the non-renovated unit. The one that wasn't renovated is renting for $1,880. So I don't think we necessarily need to renovate to get up to market rents so much as we're just trying to look for what's fair. And if the board determines that a fair number is substantially less than what we asked for, we'll understand. But we're just trying to get to what's fair.
Go ahead, sir.
I think it'd be better.
Yeah, could you maybe come up to the mic also in case there's.
And it helps with the recording.
Yeah.
You know, I listened to everything, and I respect, you know, the board's questions and everything they're
Oh, we
saying.
need your name.
We need.
My name is Stuart Cohn.
Could you spell your last name?
KOHN. Is the board's ruling universal for all the units, or can you act differently on the $1,000 rent unit or the $1,055, whatever it was, versus the $1,800 rent? Like, is it your decision all in, or can the board act and say, you know, 1,050 is ridiculous and handle that separate than the other units?
I think we have discretion on that, but I'll yield to Ed on that one.
Well, I mean, already, as I understand it, one of the 4 have been eliminated, right? So we're talking about 3 units.
But one's been.
I mean, wasn't that the testimony?
Yeah, because they're not going to renew, which would null and void this
Right.
process.
So we got 3 units. And I believe the testimony from, they're all identical in size. And they all either have or partially been renovated by the old landlord, maybe not implemented yet by the new landlord. So I guess the point is that if all of the 3 units in play are identical, then and we could certainly take a look at right now if there are differentials in rent. But I think what the board eventually will come up with is whether or not there should be a percentage increase based upon the current rents in excess of 3.8%. That's the standard right now. And I think once that percentage increase is struck, you would apply that math to the 3 units. So they all could end up with different rents, but it would depend upon how much it would be the increase based upon the current rent.
And I'm just curious, like, I don't know if it's the right question. Could any of this have been done between the landlord and the tenants without coming to this level and just said, hey, you know, let's be fair with each other? Because I don't think any of the tenants come up here and said, you know, the landlord's neglecting my unit or not working with me. I like to believe the landlord's working with the tenants.
And in other words, can a landlord and tenant still get together and negotiate a rent?
Yeah,
Sure.
like, did it have to come to this? Like,
No,
couldn't
no.
one of the tenants just say, hey, I am below market value? Not compared to the top comp in Highland Park, no one's saying it's, the most prestigious unit in Highland Park. But, I mean, it seems clear that one of the units is substantially less than the other paying tenants.
I mean,
Go ahead, Terry.
in theory,
Well, I guess I want to be clear what the question was before we answer it, because I know from conversations I've had with property owners and tenants and over the course of this thing, I don't know, would it have been advisable, given our ordinance once our ordinance was in place, to do something that violates, could a landlord violate our ordinance if it was okay
Agreed
with the
to by
tenant?
the tenants.
And I
don't
thought there
think-
was some language in the ordinance that made that not advisable.
Well, yeah, but
I don't know if that's what he's asking, or I just want to be careful that we understand the question.
our ordinance does provide for decontrol. So if.
Well, if someone
if
leaves.
If somebody leaves or they terminate and they finish their lease
Mhm.
and they want to sit down and talk about coming back and staying in the property, I think you could declare that a decontrolled unit. And if the parties agreed on an appropriate rent, you could do that. That you would technically decontrol the unit with everybody's consent. And then you would come back and you would come up with whatever rent that you feel is reasonable.
and theoretically, I think maybe this is what he's asking. Let's say hypothetically, one of these tenants said, you want $500, I'll agree to a $250 increase. They signed the lease, and then they saw that the rent control was in place, and now they're paying $150 more than legally the town was going to allow. Can they come back and claw back and try to say, I signed this lease for a $250 increase when I really legally I'm only supposed to pay?
No, they can't come back if they sign the lease.
Okay.
I mean,
And these tenants right now are month-to-month tenants, right? There are no written leases. So the hope, I think, would be that with rent control in place in Highland Park and having an up-to-date enforceable ordinance, that some of this discussion will take place between landlords and tenants about what a rent increase should or shouldn't be. But here, if you have tenants that are being asked to pay a 39% increase or a 46% increase, those tenants are certainly welcome to come in and say, or the board is welcome to say to an applicant, no, you can't do that. It's way out of line and you haven't given us anything, or you have given us something that would demonstrate you're entitled to this hardship. And that's the key. But I think technically a landlord to tenant can still get together here in Highland Park. And the offer, the tenant, the landlord rather, has to, under our ordinance, you have to disclose that there's a rent control in the borough. So you start with that disclosure to anybody who's coming in and wants to do it, and then you would go from there. But
So
I
as
think
long as the tenants knew that they had the protection of the rent control ordinance prior to agreeing to something greater than.
Right, they have to know that.
That's, okay, I
Right,
see what you're
they'd
saying.
have to know that.
And why would they pay more?
I know, why would you,
Like, he
unless
asked
you were
that,
just.
like, I've been
Maybe
doing this a
settling
long
the
time.
potential hardship exception, like there, 'cause it's just like.
I don't
settling
think a
lawsuits or-
tenant, who's gonna,
I don't know, I'm not
who's gonna come out and say, I'll pay more
Yeah.
rent?
Diane.
In theory.
Diane's on
Also,
stack.
I don't know that it's an equal kind of negotiation. If you're a
yeah.
tenant,
There's a power differential
there
there.
is a difference between someone saying, hey, I'm gonna give you a $200 increase when Highland Park says you should only get like a $43 increase. Who's gonna agree to that if they know,
I
if they
mean, I
have all
just-
the facts?
Someone that realizes they're not paying fair rent. I mean, I don't think there's a place in Highland Park, 2-bedroom, kitchen, bathroom,
One bedroom and another room.
call it 975 square feet. I don't think there's a place you can rent for, maybe I'm wrong, maybe Jerry would know better than me, for under $1,400 a month, $1,500 a month. I don't think they exist.
Well, because all the rents have gone up.
Yeah, but you know, a landlord's different than subsidized housing or, you know, that's not a case here. This is a private owned property. I see that as a difference than, you know, affordable housing somewhere in Highland Park. That's, you know, that's different.
Well, the state law does say that you can't raise rent an unconscionable amount. A judge gets to decide what that is. And
I
and we
understand.
can't
I
decide that.
just think, you know.
And I think if you.
I listen to everything and every, you know, everybody had fair points, you know, the tenants had, you know,
Yeah.
brought fair points. Everybody spoke, you know, eloquently, but I just think it's a little unreasonable to think a landlord can afford to give a tenant an apartment substantially under fair market value.
Mhm.
You
Well, if
know,
you
I mean, the
can-
tenant has an option if they don't like the rent increase, they can move out too.
Yeah. But if
So,
you've been paying a certain amount and someone tries to charge you 50, 48% more. You know, that's,
Yeah.
those are the things that we're trying to balance.
Well,
So,
you know, everything good comes to an end at some point, you know.
Yeah, it does.
Other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you. Other
Anything
questions,
else?
comments? So let's,
Well, I was just going to suggest, Madam Chair, that the board entertain a motion on the floor to continue this hearing
what
till
I said.
January 25th, 7 or 5:30, and then no further notice has to be provided.
postpone indefinitely are the words from Robert's rules. We're looking for. To
Well,
postpone, or to postpone definitely until
Well, you got to give a date certain.
until January 25th. Yeah.
Know when to come back.
Just a question before we adjourn on that. If we have like responses, because I don't know for sure, because the tenants testified today, will we have an opportunity to respond to any of the things that were stated previously?
Anything you want to send us, right?
Yeah, and put on the record.
No, testify again.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
All right, so Chair will entertain a motion to postpone definitely until January 25th, this discussion and the decision, potential decision. Moving it into old business. See no
I second.
objection?
Did I get a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Jared,
I'll
second.
second.
Well, Jared moved it.
I'll second.
Yeah. Just in a second.
All in favor.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstentions? Motion carries. We're adjourned.
And thanks, everybody.
This goes into old business. We'd like to move it.